but I don't know about the rest of them.
All right. Welcome, everybody. We wanted to start today actually by saying we hope that any of you who are in the LA area weren't affected by the fires. We've been tracking that pretty close. As you know, we're headquartered in San Diego County, so we've been under similar warnings. Carneros actually had power shut off for several days, that kind of thing. And they're calling for more Santa Anas next week already. I just got the alert on my phone. So if you are affected, hope you are staying safe and that everything's okay.
Amen.
Wow, look at the numbers pile up. I guess we should give folks a chance to show up
Give
here.
him a moment. Tell him a dad joke. I'm going to make a coffee. I'll be right back.
Don't have any dad jokes off the top of my head. I am wearing both Playable Worlds logo jacket today, as well as Stars Reach polo here. So I'm representing, but I don't have any dad jokes handy. I have plush Muppets and things like that up on my shelf. I could bring down a Muppet. You're muted now.
Oops, push to talk. Yeah, you're ahead of me. I'm not even wearing any logos at the moment, and I ripped this pair of jeans while putting them on just now. But I figured out no one can see my knees from here, so we're okay. But well, these are going in the bin after this. These things happen. These things happen. Oh, 93 in here. I did
Yeah.
invite a few extra people. I went out on social media and told folks, A, there was going to be a fireside today, and B, we're going to have an announcement and a Q&A for it. So a few extra people probably showed up because of that. And then I just sent an email to some of the MMO specialty press. So if you're in here and you're one of those folks, check your email.
Yep.
Not that we would out you or anything. Just check your email. I'll send a couple more out as we're going.
No capital spaceships yet, Old Man Observer. We got a little ways to go on that kind of thing yet. No.
I love capital spaceships and larger. So yeah, just saying.
Right. Well,
just suburban spaceships.
suburban spaceships. Well, should we get started?
97,
Yeah.
98.
We want to see if we can break
Still going
100.
up,
There it goes.
actually.
Oh, look at that. Whoosh.
Yeah. All right.
What's our record
one
in
more
here?
second. With more, that's more than it. I think our record's something like 75. But tell them what we just did for the last 4 hours. How's that?
Yeah, so we just
Yeah.
had a play test for the last 4 hours. The name of the play test was Pyromyces. Pyromyces was a new planet that we released into the test, which brings the total of planets in the testing up to 4 plus space. Pyromyces has a central extinct volcano caldera, and it is surrounded by pine forests, canyons, strange mushroom-shaped rock formations, and salt flats, which are fairly dangerous because running through shallow water slows you down quite a bit, and there are aggressive critters out there. I think my favorite thing in Pyromyces is probably the Harrer, or Harrer. Long time now, as I have been talking about the game to people, I would say that the old ones genetically engineered the creatures on all the different planets, and they used similar root stock to what was there on Earth and other places. And it meant that you might run into carnivorous house-sized bunny rabbits or cute, tiny, fluffy T-Rexes that come knee-high and make for great pets. Well, the giant carnivorous bunny rabbit is now present. So that is now in the game finally.
Well, that's very helpful. Obsidian
saw that
Stone
thing. It was
posted a
pretty
pic.
ugly.
Yep, there it is. Hera plus
Pretty mean
terror.
looking.
That's right.
Harmless bunny rabbit.
That the only thing is that picture isn't quite conveying what size he is.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
He's pretty big actually. Like you come like knee or thigh high on him. He's large. The perspective in that shot is deceiving. There are other things in there as well. The gas hogs, as you shoot them, when you technically it's when you kill them, right? You take their health all the way down, they inflate up to a larger size and keep coming. And then that happens several times. They end up getting larger and larger and larger until they're bigger than you. So that's another kind of new creature AI and behavior that went in that's part of Pyromyces. We've been doing a lot of trying out different kinds of creature combat behaviors.
It was kind of cool.
And increasing combat difficulty.
Yeah.
Because we want to make sure that combat has a good skill ceiling for players who are good at it. We are hearing feedback from players who are more the peaceful types that the world is starting to feel pretty darn dangerous. So don't worry, in the eventual game, there will be a spread of all the different kinds of difficulty levels. But it is important that we, figure out what the high end or higher end critters are like in order to make sure that we have that kind of challenge there. The other big thing that went in was the earliest, a bunch of botany went in. Xenobotany now lets you build a collection of plants. You can now gather the different kinds of plants. Pretty much every plant in the game can now be harvested. You can gather botanical samples. You can gather seeds from many of them and plant them. Right now, that's not restricted to planting in specific locations. So people were, building fields of glow roses around the landing locations on planets. One person built a perfect square of them, which was really cool. People were actively farming specific resources from these in order to get to specific crafting recipes that were challenging. So in particular, I think it was antigravium became the great quest, right? Because there's a bunch of it on Pyromyces. You need it for the grav mesh, which is one of the most popular craftables. It lets you sort of jump jet around. It got mined out really quick. People then went and, discovered you can get it from the Dark Wizard mushroom. So they started farming for it, which is as intended. We will be working more on farming, obviously. We have our preliminary design for it. There's a bunch of pieces to it because we need to make plants aware of the different types of soil in the game. We need to make the different types of soil change between them based on the local climate, and we need to make tools so that players can remediate soil, change the pH, move it from one kind of soil to another, and then you'll be able to grow plants that are appropriate for the climate, that kind of thing. So we have that designed out, and we'll be working towards getting that into the game. But this is kind of the first step, right? These are kind of the first steps towards features like that. So don't expect to be able to plant plants just anywhere forever. At some point, you're going to have to do it within the bounds of gardens and homesteads and that sort of thing. But for now, it's really cool just to see, glow fields spreading absolutely everywhere. So trying to think what else. There was a long list of other things that went in. I think the other big thing that changed the dynamics of play was that we allow players, previously we allowed them to just spawn camps infinitely for free. And now you actually have to craft a camp kit. And we're starting players out with 3 of them, but they are consumable. So you have to actually gather resources to be able to make camps.
Yeah, camps are way
which
too
makes
easy.
them a bit more of a community.
Because you could drop a camp, kill some mobs, pull it up, go drop some more.
They've always been things that you shared with the other players. You earned experience points for putting it down, but anybody could make use of the camp. So this actually will drive a little more camp scarcity, which we needed because, frankly, for the last little while, there's usually like 20 camps all over the map. There was never one more than a couple hundred yards away.
I notice it makes me gravitate towards little groups of people.
Tompolini, welcome. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it.
Oh, that person's a little low on health or stamina. Let's stop and do a dance break. That more of that happening. I felt.
Yep. That's the goal, right?
You got to be checked into the game.
Test the changes to botany, because it made me
the commands are down below
every small bush or flower or anything and think about it. Have I clicked on this before? Is that the same as the last one I saw? Let's try it. Okay, no, it's a different variety. Okay, great. It was very good.
What in the world?
I even found a Dracaena.
Looks like
a variety I'd never heard of in real life. And I paid attention to Dracaena.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot
really
of things
weird.
that can come off of that over time, right? Some of the things that we're looking at botany will be kind of the root harvesting for. There's medicines, there's cooking, there's dyes for crafting, right? So it's going to be a really important baseline harvesting skill. And of course, the farming from there, not just for farming the goods from the plants, but we also expect it to be really important from a decorative point of view, right?
Pause redeeming?
The forestry stuff over time should evolve as well, so that we can do more decorative things with the trees, like prune them back or stunt them so that they stop growing, and you can have dwarf trees as you decorate and things down those lines. So yeah, there's a lot more to do there. The nice thing is, by having this foundation, we can really kind of start adding and iterating more pretty regularly.
So there are a lot of people subscribing or following. Cool. I don't know why. So I turned the music down.
All right. Well, we're.
For some reason,
I think probably the audience quantity has hit kind of a good number. So let's talk about the big announcement that we teased. So I'll cut right to the chase. We are announcing today that we're going to do a Kickstarter for Stars Reach.
Ooh.
And I'm going to talk for a while here about why and how we want to go about it and so on. Because I know Kickstarters have a long and tangled history in video games. And there's just a lot to talk about there. So up until now, we have used private investment, right? We have raised money, and this is a public number, so I don't mind sharing
that.
We have raised over $38 million to build this game from venture capital and a few angel investors and things like that. So this has been a big project. We've been working on it for 5 years already, right? There's been a ton of core technology to build. Brand new MMO servers, the simulation, which as far as we know is unique on the planet, all of this kind of thing. Our expectation has always been that we would do the bulk of the financing this way, right?
So I turned the alerts
making an MMO
off.
up to a real standard is expensive. You all know that.
Why am I getting so many
A lot of
followers?
our tech lets us build MMO stuff dramatically more cheaply and more quickly.
I have 851 followers.
Than the way it's normally been done. And I think those of you who've been in the test have been able to see that we're able to create game systems in particular much faster than is typical. That said, I'm sure all of you have been watching news from the game industry. You have been seeing studios fold. You've been hearing about the layoffs. All of that, a lot of it can be attributed to the fact that money is getting hard to come by in the game industry. Publishers are getting stingier. Venture capital is drying up.
Yep.
The flow of money from investors
I wonder what the
just
rewards are going to
greatly
be for
reduced,
the Kickstarter.
right? So it's gotten challenging, honestly, right?
Be able to buy spaceships like Star Citizen.
It's time for us to ask you guys for help. really. We need your help in order for us to continue getting this out into your hands, right? The help has already been coming, right? In the sense that you guys have been in the game for 6 months. The energy we've gotten from that has been amazing. We worked for 4.5 years without really talking very much about what we were doing. We put out what I think plenty of people thought were very vague, high level articles on our website and so on. And we got coverage for it and whatnot. But, details about the game only really started coming out 6 months ago. And it honestly, it often felt like we were being too quiet, right? Like everything felt like it took a long time. Like we couldn't sanity check what we were doing against what players would want. And it's felt like night and day and just amazing, honestly, to be able to go into this public testing and be super transparent with you all about here's the game, here's the features. Oh, you don't like that? Let's go change it. Fixes up 2 weeks later, right? That's been the cadence for the last 6 months. And it's been awesome and just super energizing to the team. And hopefully, even though the game is still pre-alpha, hopefully it's also been something that all of you players have been enjoying. And actually, I shouldn't say hopefully. I can actually say we have data that says you have all been enjoying it. We have been surveying everybody who goes through the tests after each test. And the results from that are really strong. They're really, really good. So we know that what we have is working for people. And that's great, right? It's wonderful to see that. So, in a lot of ways, testing has been the best thing that's ever happened for Playable Worlds, in my opinion. It's just been amazing, and it's awesome to be able to work closely with players to make this the best it can be.
Here's the link. We're gonna bring that up.
So, I see some questions already. Hold the questions, okay? Because there's more I want to say. We are announcing this Kickstarter campaign now. Carneros just put the link down. The launching soon page is up now. The campaign itself isn't going to start for a month, right? I do want to talk a little bit about, I know you're all rushing off to read it, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the differences, I think, from other MMO Kickstarters. Look, we know MMO players have been burned a lot by Kickstarters, right? It's hard to make an MMO. It's challenging. It's expensive. We are not going to stop taking money from private investors. The issue is that the volume of it has dwindled, right? So this Kickstarter is additional on top and helps us make faster progress. The
Hey Tab,
the game is
they
already
just started.
played,
They just announced a Kickstarter.
right? I think obviously we're talking about it. You can go watch streams if you're not in the test. You can ask people and so on.
I don't know what happened, but I literally just had 500 subscribers.
Kickstarters is people raise the money
followers.
Kickstarter when all they have
and
is
I had
an
to
idea,
turn my sound alerts off.
Well, we're not in that place, and
I went from
hopefully
351 followers to 851
We have a game that's
followers.
already playable. We have a game that people are saying is already fun. We have these surveys after every test, and the results are really encouraging.
So this is the big announcement to Kickstarter.
From being able to call this
I
game
guess.
alpha.
I don't know. I don't like that.
And when I say not that far away, I mean it's months. It's measured in months, not in years. Months.
They're not real.
We're running this Kickstarter.
You don't get 500
much later
people all
process,
in one go,
right? And hopefully that reassures.
I don't know if I should submit a ticket or what.
Than a normal Kickstarter campaign, but that said,
Uh-oh, he's cutting out. Is it me or him? Oh.
Believe
it happens. I've seen some stuff on YouTube where they can demonetize you and stuff for things like that. No, this is on Twitch side, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Twitch will handle it? Okay, all right, I'll leave it alone.
If you button up at the upper follower count is really important. People will see that to feature the project, all of that kind of stuff. So
it's catching up.
To be so
I think people saying audio video broke.
I don't know if you can see that picture there or not. No, I didn't do it, Coop. I was sitting there and you were all of a sudden my alerts started going off and everything. And it just wouldn't stop. So I had to turn the volume down and I took the UI element behind so it wouldn't show.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I didn't pay for it. I'm thinking they do that to make the bots legitimate. So, you know, those ones that says cheap viewers here. So I think they follow a bunch of people to get credibility, and then they start doing that stuff. I don't think it's paid for. I think they're just trying to look real.
Check 1, 2, back. All right. Okay. Seems better. All right. So I am rewinding.
Right.
The game is already playable. We have the survey data telling us that people are finding it fun. We are running this Kickstarter later in the process than most Kickstarters for games are run. The game is up and running and already handles players. Hundreds of players have been in a very real sense. I know that to people who are playing, it may not seem this way, but most of the work is done, right? We are, 5 years in. So there's a huge amount of underlying tech that is complete.
Yeah.
So we're in practice only a few months away from alpha. And hopefully that's a little more reassuring because we know people have been burned by Kickstarters not delivering, right? We get it. So we understand if people aren't willing to put in money yet, we get that. But we do hope that even if you aren't willing to put in money, you'd be willing to click the follow link on the Kickstarter launching soon page, because that is very helpful to us. It helps make the project more prominent within Kickstarter. It serves as social validation, all of that kind of thing. All you'll have to pay is getting a few emails.
So that's not, I don't know if you know Ralph,
Coop, which wouldn't be for probably
that's
another
Ralph
month.
Costner.
Right? We're going to build up
designed Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies
for a while. So think of it a lot like wishlisting.
That's his real room that he's in.
Very similar.
Like, that's not a virtual background. He has those guitars and stuff.
So that absolutely would help us. So would getting the word out, right? Telling your friends, telling people who might be interested as to come over, click that link, follow it, join the campaign. This Kickstarter is not intended to fund us completely all the way through development, okay? But it's pretty important for a couple of other reasons. One is that in this kind of funding climate, being able to demonstrate that there are players out there who want the game and players out there who are willing to give money to the game is a huge reassurance point for people who provide funding.
Yeah.
Right? Honestly, more funding than a Kickstarter can. So by you indicating that, you are essentially providing proof to the investors that this game can make money someday, right? So that matters a lot, right? A lot of the current climate is such that publishers and investors are only putting money into things that are driving revenue already, which we honestly joke to ourselves, if we were already making money, we wouldn't need you, publishers and investors. We often say that to ourselves. Yeah. But, it is what it is. It's how the world is working at the moment. So, the big thing that this will unlock for us, we really need to be able to hit the gas on development now. Those of you who have been in know that we're putting systems in at a pretty good clip, but we really need to be able to invest more into adding art, into scaling things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I don't know. How many of you are currently signed up but not in the test yet?
Probably a lot.
Bunch of you? So, I'm not going to tell you the exact number. There are tens of thousands of you waiting in line. There are so
the game
many
needs
of
to
you
come a
that we
little
can't
farther
afford
along
to
now.
let you in. We can't run the servers.
Yeah.
So we need, we need to drive numbers up for a bunch of reasons for testing, but scaling up this, yeah, it is a nice problem to have. There are enough people in line that if we let everybody in right now, we'd effectively be running the game live, which we're not quite ready to do, obviously. And so,
a lot of MMOs are just
that's
charging.
one of the things
Ashes
that
of Creations, PAX
this would
Day.
enable us to do. And it's also one of the reasons why we feel comfortable in doing this, because again, we didn't really
And it's
expect to do
because
this
servers
We've always
have
thought it
cost
might be in our
money.
future, but yeah. So if you've been playing, and obviously you've been seeing the bugs, today we had, let's see, the Space Zone crashed entirely. We had the cursor
I
freeze and
reported
frame
4 or
rate
5
bug.
bugs
We
myself.
had the accumulating slow frame rate bug that was fixed by logging out, and bunches of other things, right? Like there's still plenty to do and plenty more to go, but
The issue I had, Tab, at the beginning, my FPS was really low, like I was getting 9 or 10,
if we're
and I
able
just restarted the client, and then I was back to
this,
60 frames per second, and it was fine the rest of the time.
Within this
I don't know if you had the same
easily.
problem or not, because it was sluggish.
Pretty achievable.
And then I told
Just
people in
given our
chat what's
pace of
going on,
development
and I
and the things
restarted
that
the
we're able
client,
to do
and it was a lot
with
better.
the technology. So, and
So if
for
you hit
an MMO
F9,
like
it brings
this,
up the stats
really
like
test out
FPS and
scale,
GPU
it's
and
pretty
CPU.
likely that you need the kind of early access volume, right, to be able to really make sure that things work. So,
yeah.
That's
I think because it was a new release that maybe there was some funkiness, and loading it up and then closing it and loading it up again was the thing to do.
Within the year for sure.
But I literally had 9-10 frames per second.
Obviously, we tend to think all of you know what a Kickstarter is, but if you've never done one, if you've never participated, Kickstarter.com, it's a web platform. It showcases projects and potential products. It asks for a target amount of money. It generally offers rewards. If the project reaches the
That's
money
what I'm
threshold,
curious. What kind of rewards they're going to offer?
People who contributed get the reward.
Yeah.
And you only get the money charged if the project makes it to the threshold, right? So needless to say, pretty important to actually hit the threshold. If you pick a threshold that is too high and you don't make it, then we get no money at all. The pledges are important, but also the multiplying effect of it is really important. Just spreading the word, getting people aware about it, and so on. So it's just as big a boost to marketing as anything else, because it tends to drive a lot of noise and attention. So
have we picked our target yet? Our target amount yet? Have we picked?
We have picked one internally, but it's
not ready
I don't
to
want to
say
give
it.
it out yet.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think we'll give it out before we get to the point of actually launching the actual page.
Well, you have
and
to.
The thing that we want to do actually as part of this is we have a while yet before we even have to have what those reward tiers are fully pinned down. And we want to make sure that there's something that all of you actually want. So we want to invite all of you to participate in a discussion about what those rewards might be. We're currently looking to avoid doing physical
Star
goods.
Citizen.
I know some folks already mentioned, I want a physical good. Mostly because they take time. There's production time and production risk and things like that, and delivery challenges that arise. A lot of rewards are manufactured internationally. There's unpredictable tariffs in the politics and that could mean things change in price randomly,
I said, give
etc.
me the
There's all kinds of
NCC
things like that going on. So
1701,
we want to
please.
avoid all of those risks. So we're thinking things like, if you like I guess many of you don't even know this, but there are pre-alpha T-shirts that
Ooh.
players that are actually physical goods that
I want
testers
one.
or many testers have already.
I want one.
But digital version of that is something, have in game. Hey, I was an early backer. Things like that are absolutely on the table. So we want to explore all of that kind of thing, right? We want to find out what would be interesting digital rewards, and
I
we
want to
want
buy
to be
one.
careful about avoiding things that are just really kind of pay to win, right? But there's a lot of opportunity for all kinds of stuff. I'll throw out two random ideas
All right,
that
let's
have
see what he
come up.
says.
One is naming rights for things, right? If you want to get to name a planet or whatever, that's a kind of thing that we can offer. At the higher end, I think most people
Naming a
don't even
planet.
know this, but we have the ability to import Minecraft maps.
Yes,
into
so
the
do a
game.
whole map.
So
You
who
could
knows?
map
We
out
could
a
even
whole
let
world.
if you were willing to give us enough money, you could even help design a planet, import it, and we could import it into the world. So, yeah, there's a lot of potential for interesting stuff,
Yeah.
and we're looking forward to brainstorming those with you over the next couple of weeks here in one of the channels. So we know that all of this can be a little. I mean, maybe a bunch of you hopefully are super excited. That's awesome. But I know there are plenty of people out there who are reluctant. They've been burned before. People who will be worried about us rushing,
No,
all
I'm
that
on
kind
board.
of thing. And I guess the only reassurance we can offer is to point at how things have been going so far, right? We've tried to be very transparent about everything, transparent about where we are.
I'm just going to be on for the Fireside chat anyway.
5/6 of the way through this game's development at this point, right? We are coming up on alpha within a few months. The base tech has been built. A lot of the really fundamental questions have been answered already. We know that there is a group of people out there that you are in, obviously, that want a game like this. And it is enough to make this game profitable and hopefully keep it around for years and years to come. Right? So we know that there is a group of folks who want this. And we really want to give it to them, right? To you. That's why we do this, right? So this effectively helps us get into that alpha phase, helps us get from there into larger scale testing, and helps us get more hands on the game in order to make it great.
Give me a grab mess.
I guess the last thing I'd say is if you happen to be a secret trillionaire, please do come talk to us. We would be pleased to have a private conversation. So with that, we want to, now is the time to throw it out for questions and discussion and all the rest. Yeah, if you're a secret trillionaire, you probably run the world, but maybe you're just a secret billionaire. I don't know. So yeah, let's throw it open to questions and feedback and all the rest, because this should be a community conversation.
And you can have your choice between posting your question in the Fireside chat there, or you can click the button to request to come up on stage. If you clicked it earlier, either by accident or on purpose, please click it again now so we could see if you want to come up and say things. Some people want to do control chaos. Here you go.
Yeah, so I like the announcement that you're doing the Kickstarter. I like how you stated you've already raised $38 million. MMOs have always been very expensive.
Yeah, 38 million for an MMO.
I always was in the presumption, I actually did a video talking about where you guys might go the route of Kickstarters. In my honest opinions, I don't back many Kickstarters. I've backed one Kickstarter for a video game, and that was Carmageddon, when they did a new Carmageddon. And that's because I trusted the developer. When I saw the Star Citizen one, I was very, very skeptical about it. And I was glad I didn't because it's been so long and they're still in pre-alpha. Since I've played your guys' pre-alpha and played around with that and got to know you guys, I know I'm going to be one of those ones that's going to back this right away. I've already followed this. I already want to blast this out to everyone who's interested in this, because the live stream that I did today of the build, people were like, oh, this looks cool. I like combat. I like things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very fun. The new mechanics you guys just introduced with the update, with, like you were saying, the gas hogs, shocked me, surprised me that they blew up. And it's not the normal gameplay combat mechanics I'm used to seeing. And so, since I'm already feeling that and seeing that, it's not the other Kickstarters I've seen in the past where it's like, this is what we want to do. Please back us. You guys actually have proof that you've put in the work. And I've heard you say many times, Raph, in the tests that we want to do this. And it's been stuff that you've done in the past in or in Star Wars Galaxies and Ultima Online, and you still say, we don't know if we're able to do it because of the new tech you're using. You're being honest and upfront. And by being honest and upfront with all of this, it makes people want to support you more. And I know I'm definitely one of those that's 100% behind you guys because of your development history and the games you've worked on and how upfront you're being with this game.
Thank you. That's much appreciated, right? We've tried to be upfront and honest about everything. We've told you, I think, when we make promises, we warn, okay, this is what we hope to do, not necessarily what we promise to have. When we lay out plans, we try to include those caveats. We may not get everything we want, but an MMO is also something that gets developed over the course of live too, right? It, like dev doesn't stop on an MMO. And so, I want us to continue to be upfront and transparent. One of the things that we'll be able to do as we get closer, particularly once we hit the alpha mark, is be able to give much more detailed roadmaps about what is left to do and which features are in and out of scope for which milestone, what things are upcoming. All of that kind of thing is going to be something we're going to be able to keep doing more and more of as kind of things focus, right? As they come into focus. So I actually love that personally. I love being able to put out a roadmap, say, here's what we're working on, and here's a design we're thinking of, and then having input during the design process as we continue to iterate the features. And so that's something that I'm looking forward to being able to do much more of than what we've done to date, honestly, particularly as we scale up.
So something I recommend. Oh, go ahead.
There's some good questions in the chat I was going to point out, but go ahead, Control.
So one thing I recommend when you do the roadmap, also show the past roadmap, stuff that you've already completed and when you completed it, because then people like me can come out and say, yes, this is when things happened, things like that, because, we want to help support you in that way. And anything we can do to verify what you're saying, and I do that a lot in videos and live streams, is show what I'm talking about. Let people know that this is pre-alpha. The artwork isn't 100%. The animations aren't 100%. There are going to be bugs. There are going to be crashes, and it is expected. And to hear that you guys are like about a month away from the alpha stage really makes me even more excited.
No. Month away from the Kickstarter.
Okay, month away from the Kickstarter, sorry.
Yeah, and some months away from...
Some months, okay. Sorry about that.
They're not a month away from the alpha.
They're not a month from alpha, for sure.
Thank you for correcting me on that.
Wait till the articles come out in the press and they
Yeah.
have jiggled
God.
everything around. Yeah, it's I used to be a journalist. I can say that. There's a question here from Flo that says, early access can lead to review bombing. Is this
Yes.
early access route set in stone? Is there a reasonable possibility of early access off of Steam, like via our own distribution?
Yes.
And
You
if
send like
so,
with PAX
are there
Day, other
considerations
stuff.
as to how
People don't
difficult it may
understand
or may not
alpha
be
and
to
MMO.
account link with Steam come time for release? There's a
Yeah,
little bit
that's
to unpack
actually
there.
yeah, and it's actually a complicated question. It's a
Yes.
great question, but it is complicated. One of the reasons to use Steam's infrastructure is because it saves you from having to build a
Yeah.
whole bunch of duplicate infrastructure
Yep.
yourself, right? Like that's a factor. Things like key distribution, things like um, uh, patching and whatnot. We have a patcher that we use internally. It is not in shape that I would want to hand out. Not at the moment, anyway. So there are things like that that we would have to go build our own.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible or not possible? Let's say that might depend on how much money we get from the Kickstarter, because it does cost money to build that stuff, right? So is it possible? Yeah. As far as review bombing and that kind of thing, you know, we know, but we also, to some degree, we have to I guess put our faith in the product, right? Put our faith in and hold ourselves to the standard of trying to deliver something that people really like and so on. And, I mean, games have come out and recovered from review bombing early on. And there are like review brigading things happening. It's happening right now between countries actually on Steam, where countries come in and raid reviews of games from other countries and things like that. Some amount of that is hard to dodge, right? It's hard to avoid. Um, so I would say there are alternate paths there. One of the big things that we have to think about, and this is actually an interesting wrinkle and challenge for us, is a big part of the reason to do this is so that we can scale, start letting in way more people, really
Yeah.
start testing, adding and removing planets on the fly, and having more of a concurrent population at all times. And we've always talked about going with a free to play model ultimately, but you can't really control inflow of people if anybody can just download it and it's free. And at that point, it'd be really easy to blow our scalability completely, right? It's a lot harder to be ready to accept infinite inflow than it is if you have something that is gating the amount of folks coming in. So one of the things that we're going to end up thinking about pretty carefully is how does the combination of the current queue of testers, because obviously those folks have signed up and are interested, um, whatever access we provide as part of Kickstarter rewards, and whatever we do in whatever form of early access it might be, how do we stage that? Because it probably will not be, hey, everybody can come in now, right? We've got to unlock the doors
Yeah.
gradually in order to be able to scale the service up so that it doesn't fall over on day one. So there's definitely things for us to work through there. Hopefully that answered Flo's question. I see a bunch of folks typing.
They're typing away. While
Yeah.
they're doing that, I will
What is
point
some of
out
that
that we
players aiming
made
for?
a
As many as they
Kickstarter
can get.
discussion channel here lower down in this Discord. The right place to discuss this is here at the moment in this fireside. But after the fireside ends and Raph and I get to go have dinner, there will be Kickstarter discussion continuing on in there, and we'll come in and answer questions from time to time and kibitz with y'all. And we are very interested to hear your thoughts on what we should add, or
PAX is paying.
your thinking on what we should do next or say, or any thoughts you have, any feedback you have. Hey, Paxis,
Hey,
what's up?
not much. I just wanted to share some perspective, if that's possible, too, for everybody. I just want to give you an overview that I took a moment to write down about what I've experienced in the testing over the past 5 months. So this is a window of 5 months for you all.
Wow.
The first test, we had movement only. We had basic movement features, right? Simple stuff. The next test, we had a terraforming sandbox. We had basic tools for modifying the terrain, and we played around with those. Next, after that, we had scouting and exploration. We had a new tool, a new weapon, and there were forest fires everywhere. And toward the end of the test, we experienced a mini ice age when one of the developers decided to lower the temperature across the entire zone. The next test, we had multiple zones, 4 unique biomes, a temperate, a forest, a desert, a space biome, and multiple weapons added to the game, each with their own unique advantages and disadvantages. Next, we had the homesteading test, where we had camps that turned into personal property. We built our first city called Beanstalk City. We had foundations, walls, windows, ramps, and stairs. And Beanstalk City was flooded. And finally today, we added a new exotic planet. There was a new exotic planet added. And we have vast crafting refinements. Now every plant across every zone is harvestable, which is just unbelievable. You're walking, and anything you see that looks like a plant, you can fire your harvester at it, and you can collect something from it. We had vast improvements to botany to the point where I loaded into the temperate zone, and there were flowers planted all around the world's the main station. Dramatic. Let me tell you, when we started getting crafting early on, the crafting felt a little bit sluggish and difficult to use. We have had dramatic user interface improvements like you wouldn't believe. I mean, the UI is buttery smooth now. It's still going to get better, of course. It's going to look better, but
it is not good enough yet. No.
They don't let me do special ones.
But it feels so much better than it did early on. And I think the point I'm trying to make here is that 5 months of progress has truly blown my mind, and I've never seen anything quite like it. And the evidence is all there that this game is well developed. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I got to add on to that because I was in the Star Wars Galaxies beta. I paid the $50 to get the discs and everything like that. And when I got into that beta, all we were able to do was walk around Tatooine. And we did that for like 5 months to see in the 5 months that you guys have of this to go in like short time and add so much more is just, it's amazing to see that you guys have grown faster, especially with the size of team you guys are working with. You guys aren't working with a huge team of hundreds of developers. You know, you guys, I think, said something maybe around like anywhere from 20 to 50 developers that are doing this. And that's a hard task to ask of any company doing an MMO.
It's right around 30.
impressed.
Our team is right around 30 people.
Yeah, that's impressive to be where you're at for an MMO, and it shows the skills of the developers you've brought on to do this.
Thanks. It's Vestax is on the stage. Yeah.
Hello guys, how are you?
Good evening.
Yeah, it's 11 p.m. now. I can't stay too late. I'm very tired. I just well, firstly, thank you for being so open and transparent about this as you have been the whole way through. I really, as a very miserable 31-year-old Brit, I appreciate transparency and not trying to be, like you guys are definitely not snake oil salesmen. People have been let down in the business by MMOs over the years, as you alluded to. My question, and I expect I'll get a very transparent answer. How do you plan to be transparent about the funding from the Kickstarter and how it's going to be allocated? Like the money that people are putting in. Because obviously, you're also balancing money from venture capitalists? Is there a portion of it that you're going to say this is the Kickstarter money, this is going to go in these areas here? Like, how are you going to be transparent with people about how the money that they're putting into it is going to be spent, or are you going to?
The way that, roughly speaking, the way that this works is that, I mean, it's all going to land in the same bank account. Obviously, once the dollars are mixed up, we can't really tell which gets spent on what. Basically, it buys us staffing and time. But we're going to end up setting. We have targets, right? We've got a minimum target and an expected target and kind of a dream target for the Kickstarter itself. And you can look at the history of video game Kickstarters, right? Like, I'm not even sure if there are. We went and did the research. I'm not sure there are more than a tiny handful that have exceeded like a few $1,000,000, right? Like, you can't fund a full MMO off of a Kickstarter. It's just not possible.
They're
So
expensive.
yeah, so realistically, and we are not going to budget to hit the heights of the most successful Kickstarters ever as a baseline assumption. Like, that would be silly. So we're not planning that way. The big factor that Kickstarter money helps us with is it lets us do things like turn around and say to the investor types who are currently, frankly, being tight-fisted, shall we say? Right? They're being very conservative, right? Being able to say, hey, look, we are achieving this. Here's what an average backing amount is. That kind of thing gives them comparables, right? And then that we can use in our traditional fundraising in order to say, if we were able to get this from Kickstarter and we have this market research data, that means that if you put in this multiple of that, it is a safe bet, right? Like, that's basically how that would end up working out, right? That does mean, a question went by, what is the risk if this doesn't work? Well, it's all the risk, candidly, right? All games are hard to finish and hard to make. And if we don't get enough money inside this year
Real
to
curious what the
keep
reward
going,
tiers are going
then
to be.
yeah, the project could go away. We
Real
definitely don't
curious.
have enough money to launch it right now, right? So we have to get more money. There's no way around it. We always expected that right around now we would raise additional money and slash or sign a publishing deal. And when people are telling us this game is really cool, but we aren't considering publishing deals for games that are not already in market, we go, well, then we need to get to market. That's what that means, right? From a business point of view, we have to get out there, demonstrate that there's an audience, and demonstrate that people are willing to pay.
Chili
So
Wheel 76.
yeah, could this be existential for us? Of course, just like it is for any game studio that needs ongoing money in order to deliver, right? So the kinds of things in terms of, hey, what would the dollars from this specifically unlock? I think that's the kind of things that we would put into specific reward tiers and stretch
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah.
Hey, if we hit this, we can spend the money on this feature that you guys are specifically asking for and put that higher in priority, right? That kind of thing. But, there does come a point where it's all in one bank account and we can't tell where the dollar came from.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for that. Thank you for your candor. One example I have, I don't know how many people here have played Destiny, but there was a scenario. It wasn't the Whisper of the Worm scenario. It was a different one. It was like a challenging scenario to get a cool weapon. I think they funded it based on something they were selling on the shop. They said, "Look, we need help," or but we used the money that was spent on this to exclusively fund this scenario, and I think people responded very well to it. So
Sure.
I know I certainly would. But yeah, thank you very much for your transparency, Ralph. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the way I would frame that one is we would use the money in order to get to beta and opening the doors to the game, not as a launch title, but as a title that is in public testing. Because we currently can't afford to do that. We currently can't afford to run the game for tens of thousands of people who want in already.
Yeah, and that's going to have knock-on effects, as you said, on the investors and sway them to put more money into the project. I would
Right.
assume.
So
Yeah.
to get super concrete about that, right? Right now we are running five, call it 5 zones, right? If we let in everybody that wants in, based on current concurrency numbers, we need 500 zones, planets, and space areas, something like that, right? Like, that's a lovely problem to have, right? But bringing people in at that volume prior to actually getting any revenue, that's expensive. Like covering customer support for that volume of people, paying for the servers for that volume of people, and not yet having any revenue, right? Like that's expensive, right? That's challenging. So, yeah, the direct use of the money would be, let's get us out there in a way that we can open the doors so more people can play the game, and we can start the process of becoming something launchable. That's how I'd put it.
That was very reasonable. Thank you for your time, guys. I'm going to have to shoot off, but I believe Chili Bill here has got a question as well, so I'll leave you to it.
Yeah, go get some sleep.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
I just don't see why
Hey
they
guys,
can't
I
just
just
do a
wanted
small
to
fee per
thank you guys
homestead
for the
or
new
something.
build. It's a very talking with Rodney and Dave during the Christmas break, so to speak, and the added playtest, talking about the game getting stale and stuff. That this build totally broke that.
Good.
As we know, the issues we were all having today, so it was good. I know Snowlay and I were on the chat a little bit late, going through our logs and stuff like that, submitting the bug reports and all that. The question I had, I guess, for transparency is, from our homestead build, what metric, because leading to the next build, I guess, what was the metric you guys were looking for homestead build and now into the new build? What is your metrics? Obviously to squash the video bugs, but I guess the end goal for this build.
You mean in terms of what testing learnings or what other kinds of metrics?
Well, what would bring to the next build? I mean, I know that with homesteading it was our longest build that we had, to date.
Oh yeah. Okay,
Though
so
that
a
was
big
partly
part of the
because
reason. Yeah, a big part of the reason why you ran with homesteading for as long as you did was the holidays.
Yeah.
Our
Yay.
usual cadence of development is we do about 2 weeks of development, 1 week of testing, and we deploy an update every 2 to 3 weeks. And then we often, if you've been in the test, you've seen us often drop hot fixes as interim steps in between features, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of our cadence, right? That's kind of the pattern that we've been on. But with the holidays, okay, first, a bunch of us worked through the holidays. I took Christmas and New Year's Day, and that was it. And that was true for a bunch of us, right? Because we actually have had investors coming into all of the tests, by the way. They've been jumping in and playing secretly alongside you. So that's been going on. Investors and publisher evaluation teams have been playing alongside you this whole time. So we've been doing, we've been in there supporting the test. At peak, we were running 4 or 5 tests a week for multiple hours each, right? And we were doing that over the holidays, even some. So with folks on vacation, which was badly needed for plenty of people, right? People needed holidays, they needed time off, and so on. It throws off that cadence, and it meant that we were only able to do hot fix updates really over the break, and it ends up feeling like, wow, that was a really long time in between builds, right? Particularly because the game, the thing that you do between alpha and beta is content, right? The game doesn't have loads of content right now. It has, we've been adding systems very quickly, but you don't tend to go spend on the content volume until you know enough about what the systems are and exactly how they work so that you build the right content. Because building content is expensive. It's essentially a lot of handcrafting of data and so on, right? Um, so, as those of you who play in the tests all the time know, we have not gone and built a zillion creature models and a zillion different trees and so on. We put in fairly few of those things, and we're spending most of our time building systemic stuff, right? So that's why each of our builds tends to be game system, right? More than content per se. The big thing that we are trying to do in each test is put in one more kind of, call it brick or foundation block in the core systems of the game, right? One that I point out isn't there yet. There's no money in the game yet. There's no commerce. It's sort of weird to have an MMO with no money, right? But we've intentionally not put that in until we have all of the sources of crafting reasons and goods present, right? And then once that's there, boom, then we add the economy on top of it, right? So we're being very deliberate about how we add these and which pieces of the system we unlock. Some things also just take longer than others. There has been a significant combat initiative going on in the background to put in full client prediction and make it all smoother and just kind of upgrade a lot of the plumbing to make it really just feel great so that it isn't latency sensitive anymore. That's been going on in the background, and it takes longer than the 2 to 3 week cadence, right? So there have been people working on that in the background. There have been people working on a whole bunch of rendering and client optimizations in the background for quite some time. Some of you might remember a while ago we shared video of the new underwater effect that's coming, for example. But there's a load of client optimization that goes with that, and so it doesn't fall into the nice 2 to 3 week cadence. Actually, those of you who've clicked the link and looked at the Kickstarter page, if you scroll down, one of the gifts there is actually of the new seasons stuff that has also been going on in the background. So sneak peek, you can go see that. That part is not something testers have yet. So moment to moment, what we look at is what is the response to this feature? How is it being received? What are the usability problems with it? How does it give us new unforeseen problems to deal with? Right? That's what I would say is the metric for each feature. And what we were looking for with homesteads, we were looking at what are all the ways in which we have failed to block griefing. Oops, you can plant trees blocking the homestead. Or oops,
You can really
it turns
grief in
out you
this
can
game right
pave
now.
into somebody's homestead. We missed that one. Or, whatever. And there were loads of that. Beanstalk
Capture
City was a
resources.
godsend. Oh, sorry, Chili. Say that again.
Capturing resources, so you can't
Yeah,
mine.
yeah, exactly. All of those things, and we really needed to have a bit of more of an extended period because handing people ownership of chunks of land creates all these edge cases, right? Like we found the people who dug tunnels to flood basements, right? All these kinds of things that we need to find solutions to. The big metrics, though, that we track test by test aren't about just the individual features. We use the surveys to arrive at a couple of standard things: a customer satisfaction index, a net promoter score, which is how likely are people to recommend the game, right? That's really what the surveys are aimed at gathering, and we track that longitudinally in order to measure how people are feeling about the game, right? The good news is that since we started doing the surveys, generally speaking, people rate the game more highly every build. And generally speaking, I don't want to share the exact numbers, especially if people don't work with, like, Net Promoter Score is a very particular number that gets calculated in a very specific way. You can go Google it, whatever. There's articles about it. But so I don't want to share the exact numbers, but I'll say that those numbers are not only trending upwards, they're starting in a really good place. Like a really good place.
Nice.
Like, frankly, better than most launched games.
So what system do we have? I think Obsidian asked it, and I had it in my head too. What would be the next system coming up for us to test?
We're currently working down a couple of angles at once. The two next design systems that we're working on, one of them is continuing to deal with the Swiss cheese problem. So
That's a real problem with
we
this
have
game.
a design doc specifically around tailings.
Right
which
on.
I think to current testers probably will make them happy to hear
Yeah.
that.
Especially
And
me
we started
today,
talking
because I
about
kept
it
falling
already.
through the world.
Yeah, so it's not just things like falling through the world, but also the uglification of the world that happens
Mhm.
over time. You know, tailings need to recycle back into the environment. That then means finding ways to smooth out the holes that people make over time. It means having the tailings gradually turn into other stuff. We now have the tech infrastructure to have the environment evolve in that way, so that the tailings can gradually decay back into, you know, from tailings to gravel to sand into dirt and so on over time, and even into the right kinds of dirt based on the climate. And that then led us to the second piece. We said, well, if we're doing that, then it's time for us to start tackling farming, because having the different types of soil based on different kinds of climate is one of the things we wanted to do anyway. And we just did botany. So it's a natural kind of thing to pair those two things together.
Yeah, farming would
We
be cool.
also have that season's work coming. So that's coming up pretty soon here as well. We
I don't know how
have
fast seasons are going to be, because
those
days I think are
combat
like 5
optimizations and
minutes.
smoothing and network prediction and all of that stuff. That is also in progress. We have a pile of QOL things. It's literally like a 5-page long document of QOL fixes. You've started seeing a couple of those come in already. So you may have noticed portals now tell you where you're going, and homesteads now tell you who owns something.
Mhm.
There's a bunch more of those coming. The one that the one I can't wait for, frankly, is for the labels on all the HUD buttons, so that when you equip a tool, it tells you what Q and E and Tab do. Finally, right? Like, that's going to be a huge thing and probably cut our Discord traffic by 3/4, but during tests. So there's a bunch of those kinds of things coming. So those are those are a lot of the most immediate things I think testers will see. There are some things that testers don't see. So a good example of that has to do around backend optimization and server concurrency. We're doing, not yet, but we'll be doing very soon here, a series of tests of different AWS environment hardware. Okay, so basically we currently run intentionally on moderately low powered AWS, call them machines, right? The CPUs that we rent, the machines that we rent, the virtual machines that we rent to run the game they're not crazy powerful for a couple of reasons. One is they get expensive the more powerful they are. But the other is, if we run on lower powered ones, it forces us to optimize more, right? You can't just ride on the back of a nicer CPU. We are now at the place where it is time for us to start running tests of different configurations. Virtual machines with more cores, for example, to start testing out, hey, a machine with this much RAM and more cores, physical cores versus virtual cores, and which one gets us bigger improvements, and what does it work out at the dollars per user per hour. That's really what we need to optimize. And that's going to take running tests by piling people into different virtual machine configs in order to see which one gets us that best ratio, the best bang for the buck. One of
I'd
the
say it's
effects of that
extremely
will
unfriendly. It's not like
be
Dave
that
there
will
is
also
not
mean
on
that
board
our
with key
concurrency
bindings.
on
People
planets
aren't the
before
same.
performance goes bad will start to go up, right? And then we'll do more optimizing again as we hit limits and so on. So
That's
that
horrible.
kind
Why are
of thing
people
is also
liking
happening,
that?
but it's kind of not
I
very
mean,
visible
defaults
to
that
you
makes
guys.
sense.
But
Maybe I
there's
misread
loads
his
of that
comment.
kind of
I
back end
misread his
thing that
comment.
always needs to happen, right? That's going on that you don't see.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me come up. Oh, and Rick,
Yeah,
thanks
there
for
was.
using my screen grab for my restaurant at the edge of the universe for
I
today's
knew
test.
you would know. I knew you would know. Thank you.
Thanks.
I've been borrowing screenshots from y'all every time I post one of those things. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. Who
I
has
see
a question?
Old Man Observer threw in a question. Any reason, I guess that is any reason not to just have a small
Yeah.
monthly server fee for players, like amount per homestead? That's actually the kind of thing that I was getting at. We need to work through as we think about what form early access in quotes takes, right? Because that is one kind of way to do it.
Yeah.
One of the things that we could land on is saying we're not starting free to play. We start with some kind of nominal sub. That's absolutely a possibility, right? I don't know. Does someone else want to come up? I need to scroll down because there's like almost 100 chat messages I didn't see.
You scroll for a moment. If one of you wants
Okay.
to come up here and say something, click the little button there that says you want to, and we'll drag you up on. You're not required to turn your camera on, but you can, as long as you're decent. Crazy people. Some of you must have questions for.
So I see
Inform me
one
to check
asked
on
by,
Discord.
sorry, I don't know if
The
it's
game
Erie
servers are
or
currently
Irie or
closed.
IRI. That's in the chat back here. Question is the very candid discussion about finances got me thinking. As you're aiming for free to play, what are your thoughts on how to sustain the game post release, especially for several years? Would hate for you to launch a wonderful game for it only for you guys to not have enough money to sustain the servers after. Yeah, that's something that keeps us up at night, right? Like we have to model all of that out. We have modeled out what is the cost per user to handle both customer support and the hardware, right? And then you layer on top of that what's the cost of just ongoing development, right? And we have models for that. Some of the numbers are somewhat imprecise because we have no way to know yet how many CS tickets will be generated, right? Which is why we spend a bunch of time thinking about how do we make the systems less griefable so there are less CS tickets.
It's going to be real hard in this
or less
game
buggy,
to
so there are
get
less
grief
CS
out of
tickets.
it.
Because obviously, the lower that number, the cheaper it is to run CS. Similarly,
People just don't want
that's
to pay
why
money,
we
man.
optimize things like the more concurrent we can get onto a planet, the lower our operations cost is, right? The more people that a planet can hold, which obviously involves making the planets physically larger as well, right? That makes running the game cheaper, right? So we look at those kinds of things as costs, and then we estimate based on market research and data, what is it that you can make from a free-to-play player on average? What is the kind of spend that they're willing to do? What is the mix of spenders versus people who play for free, and so on? And you build out a business model that covers those costs plus some, so that you can, because you need to not just break even, you need to turn enough profit to be able to grow, add more features, continue development. So we model that out, and we go back to those spreadsheets constantly, honestly, every few months, and we remodel it again in order to try to make sure that we can answer those questions. Our current model says, as Dave mentioned, that we believe we can be self-sustaining once we get to commercial launch. Right? Now, that does not mean self-sustaining in like that early testing.
I wonder what model they use to determine they can be self-sustaining.
But that's why landing something like a publishing deal or additional investment is needed to get us there to that final step of true launch. So hopefully that answered Irie or Erie's question. I see the avatar is here, so down at
I
the
believe
bottom
Steven
row.
has questions, but I think it's easier to come up here and ask rather than typing them out, sir. And just because Raph is famous doesn't mean anything. He's a regular dude. Come on up here.
Stubbs asked if the latency and optimizations included material flow prediction and not just combat. Actually, yes, it does. There has been an R&D project happening in the background on ways to do that, which include the stuff that we need. We've talked about this before, moving the simulation over to GPU in order to greatly increase the volume of the simulation and its speed. And that has been something that we have been working on in the background. It is significant technical heavy lifting and is not done yet. So we have not yet really been talking about it. But yes, that is also ongoing.
Yeah.
All right, Volkov.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm not in the
Sure.
testing yet, but I had a question. How do you plan on improving like word of mouth and marketing about the game? Because I got in through word of a friend, and I want to, especially when you're releasing a Kickstarter, you're
That's
obviously
what they're
going to want
trying
more
to do.
funding. So I just wanted to know, how are you going to get your name out there, and get more capital in for the investors? It's like a circle.
Yep. So one of the funny things about Stars Reach, I would say, is
Just pay
it
Asmongold
sometimes
to play
feels
the
like we're
game.
MMO's best kept secret. you know, um, I think the
Thing is, I wouldn't
holidays
want to
was
bring
actually a really
Asmongold
interesting time
in
because for the
until the
first
game was at a
time,
good state that he would
many thanks, Massively OP
be happy
named
with
us
it.
most
And
anticipated
right now, he
MMO.
wouldn't be.
I think it was Joseph Bradford at MMORPG made us his pick for most anticipated on
We got
MMORPG.com.
Steven and him right
we
now.
didn't win the overall poll or show up on the overall sites list, but it was still cool to see. MMO
I think
Bomb
in
put us in the list of 10 most
2025,
anticipated.
Stars Reach is going to get
But
on everybody's
at the same time, when
radar.
I go to MMO subreddit, like we don't come up that much, honestly, yet. So yeah, building more awareness is really important. We do have, as mentioned, a lot of people are signed up and on the mailing list. So there are a lot more people watching than it seems. But we would love to see more buzz pick up out there in the world. That's part of why we dropped the NDA not that long ago, so that streamers could start getting in,
Yeah.
people could start talking about it much more, right? We currently do advertising. It's not very much. It's a really small amount. But one of the things that actually is a really positive metric for us from a business point of view is that the ads work really well at a low price. So what that means is that there's an audience that wants the game, right? Like it doesn't take much selling to get people interested. And that's a great sign for us. That's actually something we use when we're talking to investors. We mentioned that. So one of the things that we're going to be doing, and I apologize in advance if you tend to see Stars Reach ads now, is accelerating that in advance of the Kickstarter launch. Because given that we know it works, we'd be stupid not to take advantage of it to try to drive volume into the Kickstarter. So we will be doing that. But the biggest thing that drives word of mouth today in video games is streamers and influencers.
Yes, absolutely.
That is by far, like by far. That, and the only other thing that really tends to really move the needle in dramatic ways is landing your trailer in the right like festival or award show, right? But just to give you an idea, like, a trailer on Game Awards costs a couple $100,000 for a 30-second spot, right? Like, So yeah,
We don't wanna
marketing is
spend
very
your money like
important and
that.
expensive.
Well, we do want to, but we're,
Yeah.
But you know what? Even just running a Kickstarter will get the word out more. It will help our marketing. It will help our word of mouth. It will help amplify us a little bit more. It has that effect. Hope we answered your question, Volkov.
Yeah, you did. I wish you all success. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Stevenson. Oops. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Yeah,
We
Steven
lost him.
accidentally
You kicked
dropped
him
himself.
off.
I'll bring
there
it.
we
Oh,
go.
there he is.
He hit the
Go
wrong
for it.
button.
Steven, what's on your mind, bro? Do you have a question? He's trying to figure out his mic. Watch.
Yep.
Probably.
He might be on push to talk and he's trying to find the key.
Crickets.
Yeah, we'll let Steven work on that for a second and we'll let Control Chaos ask or speak.
So I wanted to come back to the whole entire thing of how you guys are reaching out. I remember when I first joined the test, Raph, you mentioned that it was okay to take videos and to talk about the game, just no live streaming. And I did that, and that got people excited. So, using the streamers and content creators like me is a really good idea, because not only are we reaching out to the people who are interested, and I get a lot of people commenting, oh, this looks cool, this sounds interesting, but I have other content creators that reached out to me and said, I'm interested in this. I signed up for, to do this kind of stuff and stuff like that. So I think that's smart that you're using content creators as a way to get the word out about the game, because it helps cut down the cost so you can spend it more on development and less on advertisement. And I appreciate that more, because I'd rather you guys be spending the money to put in the things that you want to do, to be able to pay the staff, to be able to get the equipment you need and the servers you need to run the game to get to live.
I'm not sure there is an answer to that other than yeah.
We appreciate your support, Controlled.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you.
Yeah,
And for the friends you are PM'd about me about are ready to throw under the bus. Thank you.
Has Steven figured out the well, Steven is Steven deafened? Can he even hear us?
Yeah, he can hear us. He's switching it from he'll be good in a second. Steven.
Well, any more text questions while Steven figures out the voice?
Poor Steven.
Taco says, coming from a tester about the Kickstarter, many veteran MMO players will look at a new MMO and judge it based on the content. Based on how the current process is mechanics first, with a low current pipeline along the way, how are you going to tackle getting the people who compare a new game to a 20-year-old game? Yeah, this is a constant problem. We get compared to shipping games with X number of years of polish after that, like No Man's Sky. Been out for 7 years. Okay, they had a rough start and they recovered beautifully. And it's a lovely game. We get compared to them, even though we're in pre-alpha. Yeah, this happens. This is part of life. This is just part of life.
Yep. Yeah, we can't obviously. We are very intentionally. We have designed the game to not try to compete on the basis of 20 years of content. That's why we're so tilted towards. And I mean, it's also because it's what I love, but that's why we're so tilted towards emergent content and systemic gameplay, right? It isn't that we're planning on being skimpy on content. It's not that. It's more that I'll give you a great example. Until we understood with players touching it how trees would work with planting, growth from sapling, how many states they needed to have, how they output fruit, how they needed to react to seasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that all of that adds up to a giant pile of art rules. And we really needed players to touch the systems a little bit before we could say, let's now go make a zillion trees. Because otherwise, we could very easily spend a pile of money building them wrong and have to redo them all. In fact, I'll tell you, we have had to redo all of our trees from scratch twice already. that's and so and that's just trees. The same is true for everything. Monsters, building tiles, you name it. We really need to make sure that the systems work right. So that's why you see us putting in base amounts of content, but also you see us focusing a lot on systemic interactions so that when you look at the, let's say, the amount of plants that you could gather today, right? All of those are going to have something that you do with them, either decorative, or you could put them in a bandage to make a poultice, or you can make tea, or you can use them to season food, or just eat them straight, maybe get poisoned by them, or they are all going to do something, right? And figuring out what all of that stuff is then allows us to make the volume of content.
Forgot I turned that on.
So that's really.
Thanks for the follow, Kaylin.
Our belief is
turn that down. Ooh.
The games that went and made a single system and then piled 20 years of content on it, in the end will have less variation, emergent content, and things to discover than a systemic game where all these things interact and multiply against one another, if that makes sense, right? That's kind of the difference between sandbox games and theme park games. And that's we land on that sandboxy side because it is how you can compete against 20 years worth of static content.
No, I don't need to respond. They got that. I don't know why I'm responded.
Hopefully that answered that. Did Steven give up?
No, he's going to try again. He's doing.
Okay.
There's a question from Distic Games asking how our testers selected. And what we do is we go into our database of mailing list names. We sort them by registration date.
What date are we at
then
now?
Filter them by has filled out the Solston survey of player personality types to make sure they filled that out. Then we filter out all the people who have already been invited to a playtest before.
So, Kaylin, Star Citizen is really kind of picked up.
The next X
they dropped us 4.0, and over the holiday break, I played a lot of it. It's not the same game it was a few years ago.
Call them a new cohort,
just
assign them a
FYI.
team color.
PAX Day I love. I'm just waiting for players to get back in, content to be back in.
I hope that answered the question. Distic or Dustic.
Yeah, and as mentioned, there's quite a backlog. Given the number of planets and servers, we would have to spend quite a lot of money to be able to let in bigger cohorts and host you all at once.
Yeah, just pay for them. Make them
that
charge.
will get easier as we continue to
month.
optimize and drive up the concurrency per zone. So right now, there's a lot of people that we can't really afford to let in. So we continue to let people in all the time. By the way, don't get me wrong. We're letting people in regularly.
Here we go. Steven's back.
We're not letting them
Let's
in
see if he gets
batches
in.
of like 10,000, and that's why.
And Drin, we're somewhere in October, after October 15th, but before October 30th. I don't know where exactly, but somewhere in there. Thanks. Steven, welcome back, sir.
Hi. Can you guys hear me now?
It worked.
Yay.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, sorry about that. I have like a million Bluetooth devices, so I couldn't find the right one. So I'm going to go back to the Kickstarter here and talk a little bit about that. I think one of the biggest issues with Kickstarter right now is that a lot of times, you're looking at all these other games and they have like an end goal, right? And so whenever they're trying to launch this game, I think one of the major sticking points to people like us out here who are really looking forward to these games is because a lot of their target dates are just way off the mark, right? And as you said, like MMORPGs are expensive. They take a lot of work. They take a lot of effort. So it's easy to misstate your time frame, obviously, for a finished product. And I think the point here is that we're looking at games, like Star Citizen, Ashes of Creation, Camelot Unchained. We're getting dates and expectations that are like so far off. Next thing you know, that's 10 years down the line with no end in sight. And I know you guys are looking towards more of an alpha phase coming up soon. But I guess when you're putting this Kickstarter into motion, what's the end goal that you're shooting for? When do you know that the product has been delivered, and what exactly are you delivering on?
Because that man right up in the left-hand corner. This is not his first
what
rodeo.
We're delivering on, we have a minimum viable feature set that we've actually been pretty open about a fair amount.
That's what experience is all about.
The professions that are listed in the trailer,
knowing what works and doesn't work and failing.
So are a few others that we didn't include in the trailer. So player-driven economy, crafting system across weapons, medical, furniture, clothing and armor.
Yep. Dave too. Yep. Dave is up there as well.
Building pieces and all of that kind of thing.
That as well.
A suite of combat professions that includes combat tactics professions, as well as about 15 different schools of weapon, I guess is how I'd call it, right? The merchanting tree, the botany, forestry, farming, animal handling, and xenobiology, the mining, harvesting, the rangery things, and explorer. And there's things like advanced professions off of these, like wilderness survival and so on. So, that's the kind of thing that we would lay out in a roadmap. There are also ones that are explicitly not in that list. So things that are not, we have always said PvP is probably not going to be in a launch product. It is for us a priority after we get PvE to work well. Right?
Interesting. I don't think I've heard that
from
first.
Infrastructure point of view, we need to have the ability to generate these planets on the fly and spin them up and spin them down.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of
that is key
fundamentals
to this game.
MMO players expect that must be there. Guilds, for example. Player cities we consider to be part of our minimum feature set, and player government is part of our minimum feature set. So all of those things are the kinds of things that we are putting in now. And I think if people are, again, this is something I think testers can say, they've actually seen at least early versions, about half of what I just rattled off.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why we say we're not that far away from having, I think of alpha as we have a representative stub of each thing in place. And then I think of beta as we have all of the features, but are not content complete. And then in beta, you can usually continue to add content up to the very last second and continue proceeding to do that after launch.
Mm-hmm.
We are, based on where we are now, and assuming we can actually hit the gas a bit with further investment, we can absolutely hit alpha by the summer. We are not that far away from having stub versions of all the core systems in the game.
So I'm so just like wondering. I know that you also talked about the potential of early access by the end of the year, thinking that if this is successful, that could potentially be a metric. Do you think that is the end goal of the Kickstarter, as in like you've delivered upon your Kickstarter promises if you've made it to early access by the end of the year?
Yeah, and I think it would be a lot sooner than the end of the year, honestly.
I mean, that's good to hear.
Yeah, because it just honestly, most early access titles actually go EA when they're alpha, not when they're beta.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality of the market these days. So we would want whatever we put out in that form to be something that's fully playable and enjoyable. But it's still early. Obviously, it's not done. So if we can hit alpha within a few months, then that means that early access does not need to wait another, half a year or whatever.
It's funny, their definition of alpha is different than other games' definition
we're pretty
of alpha.
confident that given capital, this game comes out next year.
Wow. That's a headline. If the Kickstarter fails, however, let's say that it does. I mean, I don't think it will. I think you've got like a lot of support from the community. I know everyone on our site, we're all old Star Wars Galaxy heads, so I mean, we love you guys. But if for some reason it does fail, how will you, I guess, will it change your focus on development, I guess? And I mean, where does it leave this entire progress of where you are, where you're going, or the development of the game in the future if this doesn't come to fruition?
To some degree, it depends how badly we miss it. If we get 1/10 of what our goal was, then I think investors look at us and go, well, clearly this game wouldn't work, and we dry up and blow away and disappear into dust and dreams. And candidly, I mean, that's the business. If we can't show that we are, if we can't show sufficient demand from the market, then that's what will happen to us. We will go away.
Yeah.
Right. That's just the reality. That's how things are. There's no shortage of games that just had this happen to them in the last 24 months.
Very true.
Right. That's the reality. Right now we're seeing entire studios get canceled. Not just entire studios, entire publisher-owned studios are going away because the publishers are backing away from funding their own games that they already rented a building for, and they're going ahead and saying, we don't operate in that city anymore. Poof. Right? That is happening actively around us right now. So it's, this is the most fraught time for the game industry since the Atari crash of 1982.
Interesting.
Wow.
That's just truth telling. Okay. So are we at risk? Heck yeah. Every single game I know of is at risk right now. Right. Like there's no question. So yeah, we need this to be successful enough that we can turn around and fulfill the promise. The good news is, and there's a lot, we have, and I'll rattle off numbers you don't care about. They're not even numbers. I need to be careful, but I'll rattle off factoids that are things that you don't care about, as well as things you do care about. We have an awful lot of tester interest and signups, more than many games that are already.
Well, anybody will sign up something for free, though.
We have really, really good feedback from the testers who are in now. And that's not just nice quotes. It is objective data. We have market research saying that the market for this game is really big and potentially lucrative. And we can go to publishers and investors and say, hey, look, this is the potential for this game. It can make a lot of money, and that makes us more likely to be funded. So we have a lot of, honestly, if this climate were different, I think we would have landed investment money from everybody ages ago. Because honestly, the metrics and the data we have basically say that this is potentially a big hit, like a hit game. That is the metrics and data we have. And so we really want to see this through. We want to make it work. So, yeah. But, the market out there absolutely kind of sucks right now.
That's very true. And I think that your game, just the premise in general, is kind of ambitious. I think that we're kind of seeing a lot of that. I mean, that's you. I mean, your projects are often ambitious. And most of the time you deliver pretty well. But in this particular case, I mean, do you see yourself, I mean, I'm sure you had some budget constraints, through the course of your career.
Oh.
But in this particular case, I think, a lot of publishers, a lot of investors are already kind of strained. So, I mean, you might not have the same kind of wells that you did before. Do you see yourself potentially, to make this work, as you said, possibly narrowing, I guess, like the scope of the game as you go?
We actually already did that and already did that exercise. So, Old Man Observer was saying, where's my cap ships? And the answer is post-launch. Right? That's where they are. We actually, essentially, we operate on two kind of parallel dev plans, right? Because there is a fork in the road that can come, which is, one is we land investment money to finish, and we essentially go out there and self-publish, right? That would primarily be venture capital plus the Kickstarter, and we just do that. I can tell you, the publishers that we talk about go, wow, so you're looking at that and you can do that for this much money. To do it to kind of our standard, we would want to give you quadruple that money, right? Because when you talk to a publisher, they're thinking of blowing it out and maximizing it, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, features would be coming back in, right? But as business people, we have to plan conservatively. So we plan on the basis of what can we make and ship and be sustainable with. If we don't land, a publishing deal for tens of millions. So the financial need from here to getting out there and becoming sustainable is much, much lower than a typical publishing deal. Much lower. This is not a game that needs tens of millions of dollars to get finished. Okay? This is not a game that needs $10 million to get finished. We already have sunk the vast majority of the money that this game will take to ship.
I don't think he's going to be
Which is
ready
the
for the amount
advantage
of
of
money
having
that's
had
going to
almost
come out of
40
the
million
Kickstarter.
Awesome. Well, I have more, but I'm going to go ahead and cede the rest to King Torg. I think that it's time for him to ask his, but I appreciate it so much, you guys. I love everything that I've been seeing so far. Can't wait to see more.
Yeah, you, of course, have a whole cool site that you write for, so I'm pretty sure Carneros has already reached out to you guys saying if you want interviews or whatever about this, you can have them.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely will have our own thing, but I mean, you guys shooting this off at like 2 something in the afternoon on Saturday was kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And I had to scramble because I wanted to be here for this, but I really appreciate you guys, and we'll be in contact.
Here.
We didn't do that because the focus of this is for the players who are following us and interested and into this. We didn't do this for the media, or we would have picked a reasonable time. And I do apologize for those media in the audience who I've interrupted their afternoon on their weekend. But thank you. And reach out at any time. Please don't, anything we could do to help, let us know.
Absolutely. All right, you guys.
We've always biased towards talking to our current, in close community first about things. So, yeah. All right, King Torg.
Hey, Stephen, thank you for those insightful questions. I really appreciate it hearing those. For you guys, so it appears, just looking at the forums, that your audience is older. Do you have a demographics breakout or slice?
Yeah.
And the reason, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead with your reason, and then.
Right. So, a million years ago, when I was interested in, games or whatever, you could have a product that had a huge fan base, but the fan base was just starting out in life, we'll say. And so they did not have the money to fund it.
Yeah.
It seems like this is going to be a lot of your fans are people that are probably a little bit more stable in life. Is that what you're seeing? Is that what you're, I don't know, banking on?
Honestly, that has not been, hasn't really been a factor in our thinking. We have a lot of research data. Okay, so as you know, we push everybody through that Solston survey. I'm now going to tell you what that survey does. Okay.
I'd love to know what that survey does.
So
some weird
thousands
questions on
of
it.
you have now taken the Solston survey. There is a database that Solston has of like a few million other gamers who have taken that survey. And given that, when one of you takes the survey, they are able to map you against the statistical clusters that they've
Wow.
identified out there. And that means that this is going to sound creepy. I apologize. We know what TV shows you watch. We know
Yeah.
what food you eat. I mean, we know we have
And they
that
don't
kind of
ask many
marketing data
questions.
about who
It's
is
not
interested
like
in the
hundreds of
game.
questions.
It probably won't come as a surprise that it's primarily MMORPG and sandbox fans. That probably doesn't surprise you. But we know what other kinds of games appeal. We know how many of you tend to like PvP and how many of you don't. We know how many of you prefer teamwork and how many of you prefer soloing. Like, we have a lot of data like that. One of the interesting things that is in that data is that the average age
Sweet. Can you
of
go to the
people who
grocery store
would
for
be
me? I will
interested
test
in
your
this
game for
game is
days.
25, 26. Okay. Our current tester population bias is quite a bit older than that. Why? Because a lot of the people who come aware of the game, they are not hearing about it because they are in Minecraft communities,
Correct.
which skew younger. They're hearing about it because they read MMORPG.com or Massively, or because they saw a Facebook ad.
Yeah.
And as a result, the tester population tends to skew older, right?
I'm hoping it's almost done.
We are actually quite thrilled to be able to appeal to those folks because plenty of games don't, right? It's an audience that has been there, done that, seen a lot of stuff, right? But it is true that for the eventual audience of the game, it needs to be broader than, Gen Xers and Boomers who got their start in online games with, Genie and Kesmai games or TextMuds or whatever. We know that the game can appeal to the younger folks. Most of them are not in the test
They didn't
right
play
now.
Star Wars Galaxy,
In
so
fact,
they don't get
one
it.
of the things that's most consistent in the test and also in our own testing is people, maybe some of the testers here have done this. They show the game to their kids, and then the kids take their computer away and they play
I
through the
believe
whole
it.
test. We've seen that happen more than once. In fact, we've had
Kids
people
will like
send
this
us
game.
like video
The terraforming
of
and
it.
building is going to be great.
So I guess in the end, is it good that we have this broader demo? Yes, we wanted it. Does that mean that maybe they have more money for Kickstarter? Maybe, I guess. Was that a factor? No, not really. Do we know that the current tester population is skewed older? Yeah, we know that. The biggest avenues for bringing in more of the younger demo are video, right? It's not going to be Facebook and Reddit ads, and it's not going to be articles on "We Love You" MMORPG or Massively, right?
Yeah.
Those younger folks are on TikTok, right? They're on Instagram.
I've been
They're
trying
on
to
YouTube.
get TikTok streaming. I need to get that key going.
We have to build up our visibility on those platforms for more of those folks to show up.
Also,
thank y'all for discussing. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Also, we needed a little more time to get video ready. We announced this in June. We could describe the game really well. Our screenshots weren't great yet, and we weren't ready for video. As that developed, that gave us more options. But the least expensive group of people that we could reach initially were the ones that could be spoken to with just words. Those people were responding to our messages first. Then as time goes by, we had screenshots. Okay, I can
I
see
think a lot of it was just older
the
people that
improvement
have played
now.
Star
I
Wars
can, you know,
Galaxies
the visuals matter, etc.
understand
Once we
what this game is
have
going to be
unlocked the
like.
ability to put edited video out and then put out unedited live stream out, now we are able to speak to a younger audience who care more about different things and listen to different folks like content creators to get their information. The fact that they respond to video and not text as much made them more expensive and a little bit later to reach. That's why our audience is skewed a bit older.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But we have multiple audiences we're reaching out to and targeting with this, and we're excited. We're excited.
Great. Thank you all so much. Bye.
Yep. It is, I think we're almost at 2 hours. So I just wanted to call attention. We probably have
Been a
like
long
10 more
stream.
minutes.
Thank you.
I
Because I
wonder.
can tell my mom's hungry.
Yeah. How do I go
Right.
back to the
Oh yeah.
regular
Plus
view?
the euros are starting to go.
Yeah, yeah. But happy to take any question. Volkov, here you go, bro.
Hey, thanks for having me
Proof of
again.
this is the number of YouTube videos. It takes 13 minutes to explain something that could be answered in a paragraph. Well, there's also an algorithmic reason for that. For some reason, the algorithm blesses someone who goes past the 10-minute mark on what they're doing. I don't get it. I don't know why people crazy. Oh yeah, no, Chili. I'm shaking my desk because I'm fidgety. I apologize. I'll sit still better. Yeah. Volkov, speak to us.
All right. Thanks again for having me up here. I just had a question for both of you. What is one thing you look forward to in 2025 as either a developer or a player of your own game?
Oh, that's hard.
Guild. I mean, whatever. Sorry.
I would list more of the economy, and I would list the government stuff coming in. Especially after watching Beanstalk City grow, I was like, "Oh God, we're so close to being able to just put in the government stuff."
You need player generated quests. You need the mayors,
would
politician.
probably be my 2 picks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited for guilds. Absolutely. And permanent groups in the game. I'm excited. I'm sorry. I'm shaking the computer. There's certain PvP related things I'm excited about that I can't say out loud. And capital ships.
Awesome. I just wanted to ask that because during this entire fireside chat, you both have been all smiles, and I can tell you're both really excited for what's to come. So thank you again.
So we had a request for sneak peeks here.
Sneak peeks.
I
Here we go.
We could do that.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, you go dig something up while I kibitz with people. Will we get lowercase ships first?
Before cap ships? Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
I don't think people are getting the joke.
We have to work our way up to something. We need to have a little bit of drama in our presentation.
Let me see.
What
I'm
role
looking for
space play
nifty
other than
things
just
to go.
mining and going from point to point? The going from point to point part is going to expand a great deal and become more important. Yeah, you wait and see. That's got a whole another order of magnitude of complexity coming. Will there be any cool space piracy stuff? Bounty
I hope you'll be able to
hunting
walk
and
in your ship. You
robbery?
have to walk in your ship these days. If you can't walk in your ship, it's not.
All right.
You're not a.
I'm going to
space
spin a
game.
little story for you. This involves some lore, which I won't apologize for. As hopefully you all know, long ago the old ones were the ones that terraformed this whole arm of the galaxy and then subsequently vanished. They're the ones that genetically engineered us all, and they left behind the robot servitors. They left behind other things too. Okay, so there is the cornucopia, which was when they were engaging in genetic experiments and they messed up, they would just basically throw it away. Well, that stuff fused together into a galaxy spanning hive mind that wants to infect us all and take us all over into its single communal brain. The servitors really do not want humanity to have access to the power of the old ones. There is a faction of humanity, and yes, I use that word intentionally. There is a faction of humanity called the Clave that is obsessed with the old ones. They actually have a fair amount of political power within the Transplanetary League. And at their higher echelons, they are gathering up old one artifacts. And old one artifacts have been known to be addictive and powerful and dangerous in a variety of ways. Often they can greatly increase the capability of something that you craft.
Mm-hmm.
It is intended to not be that unusual to find the remnants of old one technology on these planets. Sometimes you might be tunneling through a mine and find something buried in the ground. Sometimes you might find an abandoned old installation there with remnants of old one tech left there, and so on. If the servitors catch you with that stuff, punishment might be required. Said punishment might involve, a very gentle form of molecular disassembly, just to minimize, any potential, any potential of that stuff spreading. They engage in similar practices with infection.
What happened to the sneak peek?
Of course, there is a segment of humanity that is kind of bewitched by the idea of fusing into, a singular being that it means you always have friends.
If you go to my YouTube channel,
who wouldn't want to also
all my gameplay is on
half
there.
Tentacle monster and half poison
Let me,
ivy.
I'll link, and I have a playlist
right?
for it.
And so, that's another area
Let me
where
link it to the playlist.
There are folks who would prefer to be
Stars
members
full
of a
playlist.
reborn faction, so to speak, and so on, right? Now,
this playlist here has all my
stuff
Stars
is
Reach
that there
ones.
is technology and organic matter.
The Twitch
that is
ones, they
interdicted by the
expire,
servers.
right? So all the
And,
permanent VODs. This will go on both Twitch and
it's criminal
YouTube, but
to
YouTube
possess
I
it
keep them permanently.
because it can attract attention.
So that's all the YouTube
Such
ones.
as
so like even the play today
scheduled
is already
demolition
on
of your
there.
planet.
Should be on there. Let me
so,
make sure I tagged that.
yeah, smuggling
new
and
build dropped today.
concealment and piracy and all of that stuff ends up mattering for those purposes because there are, for now, NPC factions out there that have opinions about the stuff that you move around in the world. And there, eventually, that will be the grounds for factional PvP. So that is kind of where
Thanks for the subscribe there, John.
Come from.
Appreciate it.
So
Appreciate it.
Will piracy matter? Heck, we even want. I don't know how many of you remember, given that we just talked about how old we all are. How many of you remember the old?
Yeah, and as soon as this, because I'm streaming to YouTube right now, so as soon as this is over, that'll be saved and available on YouTube.
Random space aliens came and stole those crystals from you, right? Yes, you hunger. Well, yeah, those kinds of things. You will be vulnerable to piracy, things trying to steal the items that you mine in space, and so on. So, yeah, all of those kinds of things will be playing into piracy.
Arr.
Yay, I love storytelling.
Yeah, we do owe them some more lore up on the site, I think.
I agree.
So, let me see. I've been looking here. Let me just share some random
All
stuff.
right, here we go. Sneak peeks. Let's make this full screen.
On my
full
second
full
screen.
Full screen. There we go. Full screen.
And I'll just flip through. You'll get to see my desktop background, which is gardens in Jacksonville, Florida. Here's just a variety of stuff that is sneak peeks. You can all see that all right? So we've been working on fire and smoke a fair amount and doing a lot of adjustments on temperature. So fire is going to be changing into being a gas that can spread and propagate. And you thought forest fires were a problem now. They're going to get to be more of a problem because fire will be.
That fire looks good. That looks better than a fire I've seen before.
We've been working on that, and that's coming along with the effects of smoke. And
I'm about to put Mule on my top 5.
Looking better and lighting better and so on. So
the fire looks great.
That will be coming along as we continue to work here. Let's see. This one is labeled Resource Influence Maps. Let me even double check what this even is. I believe this is some of those server-side optimizations or client-side optimizations for better display of local conditions. You could, this is all debug stuff. Oh, there we go. So this kind of thing allows us to start testing and playing with environment modification and the way that the seasons react and respond to different things, right? So this is kind of some of our test bed of seeing, look at all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have been using that in order to improve the look of seasons. Whoop.
Oh, we got some code.
There it is. So the gas alpha and visuals are getting improved. So that's
the
coming.
Water looks good.
And
it does. I agree.
Here's a slightly along the way version of that also shows that interacting with localized temperature and seasons. So you can see the way that the cold descends from on high as it goes. And this is what ended up outputting the GIF that you saw.
Is going to be so neat.
That is on the Kickstarter page. And I will show you that, which is kind of the slightly more finished version of it. So you can see here, this is the kind of thing. If you look down here in the bottom corner, you can see the temperature curve progressing through the year and the moisture curve progressing through the year and how they interact in order to change the way that the flora reacts and whatnot. So all of that was the preliminary work to get you this, which is the come on, open. This is where seasons are now, and there's just a little bit more to do on them. We've technically had seasons for ages, but getting all the bits of grass, all the trees to react correctly, the right plants to show up at the right time. Yes, we can do things like humidity affecting fire risk.
Mm-hmm.
This will all also affect your farming and your plants. You've got to keep an eye on. This video is moving slowly, but changes are slowly happening. Keep an eye on the remote hillsides and so on, because the whole point is that the seasons will change and evolve gradually, and you'll notice the grass reacting. So yeah, even as you farm the different plants, you're going to have to care about different types of soil that respond to different climates. You will have the ability to modify your biome and environment locally as a farmer and as a homesteader by setting up heaters and chillers and watering the ground and things like that. And that will affect what kinds of plants grow. So, here we're this far through, but you can actually, it's probably been very subtle and you didn't notice. Notice that the grass near the water here is still green. but the stuff here has started to brown. Look, the trees are starting to brown now.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
What we did for the GIF was speed it up by like 10 plus X or something so that you could see it
My vineyard.
More dynamically. Now the trees are starting to lose their leaves. And it's getting colder, and we'll start to see the freeze line start to descend as the grass is dying back here. So, yeah, it's taken a bunch of work and a bunch of art rules to get all of this to work correctly. So you're going to have to worry about this if you plant crops that can't react, can't thrive in a given environment. And then you'll have to set up objects that help it thrive in that environment. So we're looking at every planet having different seasonal cycles, different max mins, different humidity levels and oscillation. Once we get this working, we are going to stack on top of it, even slightly modifying the temperature and the humidity on the day-night cycle so that you get a little more dew in the mornings and maybe puddles that freeze overnight. Which once we have this, it'll be really easy to add that up on top. So, yeah, it's giving really nice results right now. This also, by the way, for those of you who've played, you know what this means. Yes, that means that those cliff faces are now slippery and affect your locomotion and your navigation. So, when things freeze, you're going to need to worry about your traversal, because it will change stuff quite a lot. So, yeah, there you go. It's still running, but I see a question. Are the current planets procedurally generated and handpicked good ones? Not exactly. The planets right now we are building ProcGen algorithms using a custom tool. And there's an article about this that you can go see, as well as videos that we did back at the Unite conference with Unity. So right now we do an awful lot of hand curating of those planets. And but what we do is when we arrive at topologies that feel good, we then add those rules to our ProcGen library, and then those will become things that we don't need to handcraft anymore. So we iterate on how to make great volcano calderas, how to make great canyons. Once they feel good, we don't have to hand curate them anymore. They can be procedural. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Did the dance healing video, did the new dance effect go out yet, Dave? Yeah, so they saw that. So I'm not sure what else I have easily handy to be able to show.
Show it all.
So, yeah, I guess that's probably a decent place to stop for now. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks so much for listening, asking such good questions. We're going to continue the conversation, of course, in the channels here. Oh, hey, Dave, you're here now.
So I just wanted to wave goodbye since you were signing off.
All right. Wave away. Yeah, so we really appreciate the questions and the input. Please do visit the Kickstarter page. Drop it a follow if you can. It doesn't commit you to spending anything yet, but it really does help us out. And we will see you on Discord and on the interwebs and in-game.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cool. We're going to end this here. Appreciate everybody hanging out with me. And as you can see, they got some cool stuff coming in.